Hey everyone, it is George Couros. Welcome back to another highlight edition of the Innovator's Mindset podcast. Really great guests, people that I'm working with in the future, joining them in their schools. And I'll get to them in a second, but I actually am reading a book right now that I published, and it's by Karen Phan, who is currently a college student. And she wrote this from the perspective of going through K-12 education. So the perspective of a student who co-wrote it with Jennifer Casa-Todd. And one of the things I like to do with books that the Impress team publishes is really kind of slow read it after it's released and just kind of reflect on it, think about some of the things that are being shared. And one of the things I really found fascinating is the discomfort in some of the conversations to actually hear Karen's perspective of school and it not always being great. And the thing that I love about this book is that Jennifer Casa-Todd basically responds to some of those things that Karen experienced and said, to basically combat this feeling, here's some things you can do. Here's some things that we've seen work in other places as well. And kind of having that balanced perspective of what is the student perspective of how school is, but also what are some things that we can do with inside the constraints? And Jennifer does a really great job of talking about that and bringing in other perspectives. And when I was talking to Jennifer, and by the way, you can get the book down in the link below. It is a great read, especially if you're looking to do something with students and faculty together, which I know there's a lot of student leadership groups, really great opportunity. And when I was talking to Jennifer about this, one of the things that really stuck out to me is we always encourage student voice, but do we encourage student voice only when we like what they say, right? Is that something that we think about? Is that, do we actually encourage students to share their authentic perspective, which Karen does a really great job, even if it causes us some discomfort? And it's really easy to kind of say, you know what, that sucks for the student, but here's all the things that we actually have to do within school that is impossible. You can say that, but it doesn't really help anybody, including, I think, many in the field of education. It is asking the question, hey, I understand this perspective. What are some things that we can do to make it better inside the constraints, which is why I'm a big advocate of innovate inside the box. It doesn't mean that we don't need to change systems, that we don't need to really think about some of the constraints put on educators, but thinking, what do we actually have control over and what can we do right now? Because sometimes when you start doing things inside those constraints, it actually changes the constraints for future people because they see how beneficial it works. So I encourage you to check out the book, but I also encourage you, I think mostly why I was thinking about this is to lean into some of the discomfort that we hear from some of our students and think about, is that the experience that we want for them? Is that what they want? And, I remember being on student council when I was a kid, and it was like, I ran on 3-hour recess. So it was not happening. Right. So I remember this distinctly. So if there's things that maybe students say that you can't do, I think basically saying, hey, I appreciate that perspective. Here's why we can't do it. At least that you're listening, thinking about, what are some of the experiences? Does it cause us discomfort? Is there anything we can do? That's something I was really thinking about as I'm reading this book. And like I said, check it out in the link down below. But I promise you that if you didn't appreciate this, you will love some of the perspectives of my guests. Welcome back to another highlight edition of the Innovator's Mindset podcast. You're saying there's a lot of really great stuff going on in the district. What's some of the highlights that you've had over the last couple of years? Some of the things that you've seen that have been really, really powerful.
Oh man! All right, let me give you a couple, George.
Sure.
I'll do a top three.
I love it.
First, I would say since I've been here 3 years, it's perfect. I can give you a highlight from each year. First year we worked pretty much the whole year on creating our West Islip profile of a graduate, which, for anyone that has not done that, I really think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I know that New York State has a portrait of a graduate now as well, so it's more out there and people are familiar with the concept. But we did a common book read of the book What Schools Could Be by Ted Dintersmith. We had a film screening, community film screening of the film Most Likely to Succeed. And we started talking about, what's important to us in West Islip for students to possess in their time after school and life after school, we call it. And, had a lot of those great conversations and developed that profile. I would say also, moving into second year, we have been, I know this is a topic that you love, George, but, have totally been embracing AI in education. We created, rather than going the policy route, we created an AI vision statement, which we have done and posted up on our website. We have a pretty cool stoplight system, that we've been populating where, these are red activities we might not use AI for, yellow, okay, it depends on the classroom and the type of topic. And then the green, like it's all go to use AI, so we have our AI vision statement going on. We just actually made a video on this that we're really, really proud of, just highlighting all the work going on in the district with AI. And we're also just really, I kicked off Superintendent's Conference Day this year talking about the importance of AI and emerging technologies, but also not losing that human connection, because that's really, what drives it all. So that's been our theme, for the past few years. And I would just say that, like George, you talked about, there can be, when you come to a new district, great things going on. Yeah. We have an amazing CTE department, career and technical education. They've been doing some amazing things in that department for years. And I would say that just through some of the connections I've made in the first couple of years, just introducing people in the industry, we're currently working with the Maritime Industrial Base to actually build parts that are going to be on U.S. Navy submarines, which we're super excited about. We have a welding lab we have here, and the kids are building this, like building all these amazing different parts and going through the process. They're using a plasma cutter, a torch, the welding booth, and they're then looking at their parts, evaluating them, seeing what they need to go back and fix. So just really excited about all those different things going on.
Like every time I, talk to different schools and just some of the stuff, it's just mind blowing. It's just incredible. And I actually didn't know, we talked a little bit before, and for people that don't know kind of the behind the scenes of the podcast, I'll talk to guests a little bit before, but it's totally off the cuff. I had no idea about the AI stuff. I didn't know what you're doing it to. So I actually pulled it up, some of the stuff that you're doing. So if anyone wants to see, you can actually see it in the links down below. One of the things that really stood out to me, having that vision statement of like what you're trying to do, is you have a focus on, it says parental involvement and support, offer parent training on how to assist students in using AI for learning, promoting open dialogue and understanding different learning styles is essential. Have you, and I don't know how far you are into this, what have you seen from like your parents and your family communities about some of the stuff with AI, what you're doing in school?
Yeah, I mean, we hosted an AI parent night, which was really well received. Sometimes you have parent nights and it's like a rough turnout. I know all administrators have experienced that. You think you have this great idea, but for the AI one, we put it out there, and we capped it at, let's say, like 60 parents, and we filled up right away. So we opened up a second section that filled up right away, and we had to kind of start doing a couple different sections on at different times. So it was pretty cool. There just seems to be in the community, a desire to learn more about it, and then also see how it's being incorporated in the schools.
There's a huge value in creating some new spaces, but not if you just kind of bring the old way of thinking, like what does that new space create and how do we think differently about that? So tell us a little bit about that process of what's going on in your school right now.
Thanks. So yeah, I mean, we're building this new building called the ICAS building. It's going to be our innovation hub. And I think something we've been really conscious about this year is being intentional in saying, yeah, we have this amazing new facility, the only one of its kind in a K-12 space in Canada. And there's only 2 others that are even close to being similar in all of North America. I mean, not post-sec, right? But in K-12. Yeah. It's great. And we can't rely on that. Like, yeah, I can't wait for you to see it. It's like, will blow your mind as an innovative person. But it's not the building, like it's not the bricks and mortar of that building that's going to suddenly make sure that our institution is innovative. That's our brand. We're known as being a really innovative school, but we can't rest on that. So we have an athletics and wellness center, right? It's brand new. It's incredible. Has all the things, all the bells and whistles. But just like being in the building won't make you fit. Like I tried. I've been in there for like 6 months and I don't have abs yet, so I'm not sure what's happening. But it turns out you have to use the space, right? Right. So I'm teasing, but it's the same thing with this building. So we really want to address the skills gap in Canada. There is a skills gap. It's documented. We know it's there. We don't want our students being a part of that for sure, but it's way more than the skills. And I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but the skills, the hard skills are going to change in a year. You know, right now, are we teaching coding anymore? Should we be? I mean, AI is going to have that taken care of. It already does, and it's going to have it to more of a fulsome extent in 6 to 12 months. It's not about the hard skills. That's part of it. It's about the mindset. Like, how are we building our girls and students to be innovative thinkers who can solve complex challenges? So a way that we're addressing that is like with an open innovation like hub. So getting outside companies, like partnerships with great companies, thinking like Google, Apple, DMZ, to come in and like give us their problems and be working with our kids to solve the problems in an open-ended way, bringing in different industries. So like having our expert in residence program, we'll be having experts from like lots of different industries come in and like present problems of practice from their industry and have our kids work through the problem solving with them. That's the kind of mind shift we're looking to do. And it's like beyond the building. So even our HR department right now is there, everyone's always in when you've got an idea at Ranksum, which I love. Like, hey, we're working on being more innovative. How can we, adopt AI in our HR processes? And so they're like, every different department is really trying to like leverage what this looks like. And I talked with everyone when we came back to school in January and said, like, I know we're all on a continuum of how we want to adopt this. You don't have to some of you have your GPS set to the destination, like where you want to go. You're like, I know how to get there. I've got it all mapped out. My playlist is ready. Others don't have their key in the ignition. But after today, everyone's ignition has to be at least turned on. You got to turn the car on. Right. And man, have they risen to that call to action.
Here's what I really connected with. Your graduation rates under your leadership have risen significantly. So what I'm reading is almost 55% to 92%, which is incredible. But you also have a focus, a profile of a graduate. And this really connects to my work with Innovator mindset. It talks about innovative problem solving, resilient, global citizen, talk about collaboration. So one of the things that really stuck out to me is that you are really connecting, traditional skills, traditional ways that people see school, the importance of that, while also, because people often see this as an either or, really focusing on how do we actually not only prepare kids for the future, but actually have them being future ready right now. Because I think sometimes it's like, hey, they'll lead in the future. It's like, well, you actually have to give them the tools to do this within our school context. So why was that so important to actually like kind of bring those two worlds together of, really developing the basics to really focus on an innovative future?
George, I think that's a great question and spot on. It's more than just numbers. Yeah, we increased it by that much. And yeah, on-time graduation is extremely important. But, we've got to make learning relevant. And I think when kids see that, hey, what I'm doing, the class I'm in is going to help me in the future, even past graduation, I think I'm going to focus a little more on school. And I think students have really focused on what's life going to be like when I graduate. And that's why we partner with our local community, and we've asked them, what are those attributes that our graduates need to have when they walk across the stage? And from that, all that work came our portrait of graduate. And I think that is so embedded in our culture in our community. But I think that has really given us a whole new perspective on what graduation means. So making that learning relevant, I think, has been a game changer.
Well, and that, like, I'm looking at that, and you'll be able to see the link to the profile of a graduate as well. And I didn't know that you really brought in the community voice. Like, I know we talked a little bit, but I didn't know that specifically was built together, which makes it more likely to be successful, because if your communities help build it,
yep,
and they want it to be successful, because if it's not, it's kind of their fault too, right? That's a little bit, fair. Why was that so important to, and like I know that you're elected, and I don't know how much that matters to it, but I don't think, I'll be honest with you, whether you were elected or appointed, I don't think you would have done it any differently. Like, you just kind of seem like really kind of bringing people in, and how important that. Why was that so important to, have people like your community, your business community, your students, your staff build that together? Because I think that's a really important aspect of why it's leading to success in your school district.
Well, I had something happen my first year I was in office. I actually had the employer of the largest private industry in this community. It's a paper mill. Come to me and said, we need to talk to you about starting a program where you can train your graduates to come work in our mill. And they had to have specific, skills and all that. And it was called advanced manufacturing. But to me, it made me think about, we need to turn out graduates who have those skills and attributes that can get those jobs that might be specific or unique to this local community.
Right.
And, and I'll talk about one thing that we started recently, which is kind of neat, is we actually have started an aeronautics program, because in the Jacksonville area, there's a big need for pilots. So we actually have kids that are training to be pilots now and actually have flown solo flights on airplanes. But to me, we are trying to respond to our community. We want our kids to get jobs and stay here and pay taxes and all that. But if we are not aiming those kids for what's out there, I think we're missing the entire mark. So that's what Portrait of a Graduate is about. We had to listen to our local community and businesses and everybody out there to say, this is what we need. And then we brought this document together, and that's what we operate by.